Hello everyone, so here we are back with the final look on this pretty rare GPO Mickey Mouse phone from the Telly Special range. Now this phone is actually quite a rare example because it's in original condition. This phone has its original line card and it's not been back to the factory for refurbishment. Now the model of this phone is TSR1001A, so this is basically as it was issued. It's not been back to the factory to be converted for BT PST, which is basically the modern plug and socket that we use today, the little modular BT plug. So here's a little look at the line card. I believe they use this type of line card on trim phones as well. It's got the same connections on the inside, on the grommet end, as a trim phone would have. But anyway, this line card is like, a pretty standard GPO type. It's a rounded line card, it's in like a grey colour. It's got a partially coiled section at the end, so it would stretch out and extend to about 3 meters, because as this is, it's pretty short on its own. I'm not sure why they did it this way for the Mickey Mouse phone. It's not as if you're going to be walking about with this, is it? But anyway, here's a look at the plug on the end. This plug is called 505. You might be able to see that. Get it at the right angle. So where are we? There we are. 505 EET79/1. So the model of this plug basically is 505. And I believe all the special range phones were fitted with a 505 plug because they weren't allowed to be serviced in the field. They had to be disconnected and sent back to the factory for refurbishment or servicing. And apparently this type of plug wasn't designed to be unplugged by the user. This plug was only designed to be unplugged by an engineer. There was another type, I think it was 420. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what the plug was called. And that was user disconnectable. But they did it this way for the special range, just to easily disconnect it for an engineer to send it off to the factory for servicing or refurbishment. I think it had like a little restraint on the socket on these 505 type, and that stopped the user unplugging it. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's just quickly show you the plug up close. So we have little red insulators, and then the brass sections obviously are the contacts. You can unscrew this if you want to have a look inside. So the plastic cover comes off, exposing the wires there. So as you can see, we have red, white, green, orange and blue. The orange was for earth, I believe, because a lot of these special range phones and other phones that the GPO offered could be used on a shared service line or a party line. But the red, white, green and blue were the standard phone line colours. So there we go, that's the card. So let's have a look at Mickey. We'll start with the handset. So the handset is a pretty standard type GPO handset. This is a GPO 776 compact phone handset. It's quite a nice handset. Sometimes it can groan a bit and crackle like that. Well, not crackle, but creak, if you can hear that. This one's not too bad, but some of them were terrible because the handset's actually in 2 pieces. The top and bottom here. You can see there where the seam is. And basically you have one screw on the top there, and you separate the handset into 2 halves rather than unscrewing the ends here. So it's a little bit different. But there we have the receiver. There we have the transmitter. I don't know if you'll be able to see in there the red and grey rings on the transmitter. And if you're familiar with that type, you'll know that I've replaced the transmitter for the 21A electronic affair. So this gives much better transmit. There we are, we have a standard length handset card. And of course Mickey's arm here provides the hook switch mechanism. So let's just have a little bit of a close-up of Mickey. Okay, so here you can see a bit of a better close-up of Mickey himself. And as you can see, he's in very good condition. There's hardly any discoloration on this phone, and all the decals are in very good shape. Usually you'll find that his shorts here will discolour, especially on the back, but this one has seemed to have survived the times. It's very shiny now, of course. You might be able to note just on the back here, you can see that it says Walt Disney Productions, because of course this telephone was made under license from Walt Disney. Alright, so let's take a look at the dial. As you can see, it's the standard GPO type dial, and just to the side of the dial here we have this button, and this is basically a recall button, and that was only used if the subscriber was on a shared service or party line, and in which case the subscriber would lift the handset and either hear people talking or get nothing. If they got nothing, great, put the handset to one side, you would press the button which would call the exchange or recall dial tone, and then once you had dial tone you could dial out in the usual way. But as I said, that button was only used if the telephone was connected to a shared service or party line. Alright, so going back to the dial here, there's the number card, which I made myself for this phone. It's styled authentically with the period of this phone, and I've got partially covered up numbers at the end there because that's my personal landline telephone number. As you can see, I think it does look very authentic. That's basically how they would have styled an original one. So I got an old number card, an original one, and I copied it with my number, and I think it looks really cool. Anyway, at the top there it says Fire Police Ambulance, dial 999, operator dial 100, and those numbers are still relevant today. So we just have a numeric affair here on the dial, because of course by this time we weren't really using letters in numbers. But this is what the dial sounds like. As you can see, here I should say, it's nice and smooth now, and that's because I've cleaned and oiled the dial, and it's running perfectly now. So we're coming towards the end of the overview around this lovely GPO Mickey Mouse phone now, and one thing I wanted to point out was how good condition the simulated wood plinth was on this phone. Many a times over the years, this sort of wood staining effect here just wears off from being wiped over and polished, etc. But no, this one seems to have survived the times. You can see here the line cord and the handset cord enter at the same points there at the back of the phone. That looks quite neat. And on the right hand side of the phone here you have the ringer adjustment, because this has a trim phone ringer, which is an electronic type warble. We have this little dial here which adjusts the sound. So we have loud, we also have the crescendo setting or the medium setting, and then finally we have the soft setting, and there is also an off setting, but that has to be adjusted inside the phone, and me wanting to keep this phone as original as possible, I've left it the way it would have been when it was factory set. So finally we move to the base of the phone here, and as you can see we have all the 4 rubber feet intact and in good condition. You can see here are the perforated holes from where the sound comes out from the ringer. It's a metal base, as you can see, which is just shows the engineering of these older telephones. I believe the push-button versions of these, which came later, had a plastic base, but anyway, that's another story. So here are the markings. It says post office property, because of course this would have belonged to the post office at the time. This was before you could buy your own telephone, you had to rent it. So there's the model, TSR1001A, TSR standing for Tele Special Range, and of course that's the model there, 1001A. And I believe the A was to indicate whether the phone had an internal ringer. I'm sure I read that somewhere, but I think that's what that letter means. So EET is the manufacturer that made this, which is Plessey, and it was made in 1980, and it says /2 there. Not exactly sure what the 2 means. I think it's something to do with the specification of the wiring inside. But there we go, that's the base. Well, that's the tour over with, so now let's begin with the demonstrations, but first we need to connect Mickey to the line, and to do that I'm going to use this flush mounted GPO wall socket. My friend Andy sent me this, very kindly of him, to enable me to keep this phone original. It's a little bit crude, as you can see, but it works, and that's the main thing. So connected to this socket here we have a regular BT line cord with the modern modular BT plug, and this would have originally been flush mounted to a wall. This is the jack plug type, but there was also block terminal styles. I'm not sure whether this was specifically meant for a 505 plug or not, or whether it was used for the 420 style. I'm not sure, but anyway, it works, so that's all that's important to me. So I'm just going to plug the socket in here, just to a regular extension line cord here, because funnily enough I don't have a landline BT socket nearby. Okay, so next we're going to plug in the 505 jack plug into this wall socket here. It just pushes straight in like that, and that's connected. It doesn't pull out easily unless you physically grasp it and pull it out, so you know it won't easily pull out unless you really tugged at it. Alright then, so now we should have dial tone. Which we do. Now that we know that Mickey is connected to the line successfully, we can begin the demos. And as always, I'll start with an outgoing call. So here goes. So there's the dial tone.
Hello, thanks for calling BT. In a few words, please tell us how we can help you today.
Landlines.
About a phone line, is that right?
Yes.
What is it about the line? It could be something like, I'd like to order a line, or I've got no dial tone. So, what's the reason for your call?
Well, I've just called you, you daft bitch. Of course I've got dial tone. Obviously you can't help me. Goodbye. That's my trolling of the automated service there. But anyway, let's call one other number. We'll call Morrison's. Not that we need anything from there. So we have the dial tone again.
Hello, and thank you for calling Morrison's Denton. To hear our store opening hours, please press 1. Or to speak to a member of the store team, please press 2. To hear these options again, please press star.
And I did that there just to show you that rotary dialing or pulse dialing will not be recognised by those call menus. Alright, so finally we'll ring the telephone, which will simulate an incoming call. So without further ado, here we go. Here's the lovely trim foam ringer. So that's loud. Then we have medium or crescendo. The first ring's softer and the second ring's louder. It's hard to pick up on camera. Then we have soft. It's just a bit less shrill. Okay, so we've answered the phone now. So I'll just mute the microphone on my iPhone here and put it on speaker. And now I'm going to transmit into the handset. And already you can hear it's picking my voice up from here. Testing, 1, 2, 3. As you can hear, the transmit of an electronic microphone is much clearer than a carbon transmitter. So there we go. So that's one fully working 1980 GPO Telespecial Range Mickey Mouse telephone. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. Hopefully you've found it entertaining and not too boring. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, then please give me a thumbs up. Comment below if you have any questions. And if you're new to my channel, then please subscribe. And also click the little bell icon, and that way you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And of course, why wouldn't you want to see a video of a vintage telephone, which to most people is probably useless nowadays. But anyway, there we go. So hopefully you've enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care.